I'm going to present our next person that is going to be giving a conference is Dr. Michael J. Gonzalez. He's a professor at the Nutrition Program, School of Public Health in the Medical Sciences campus, University of Puerto Rico, and adjunct faculty at the Universidad Central del Caribe School of Medicine and ETP University Program of Naturopathic Sciences. Dr. Gonzalez is a fellow of the American College of Nutrition and has authorized over 250 scientific publications. He serves as a member of a consultant of the editorial boards. He has served as consultant for several companies where he has been responsible for designing formulations and nutritional supplements and pharmaceutical products. He has also been a consultant for the Center for the Improvement of Human Functioning, now Riordan Clinic in Wichita, Kansas, and the Centro Médico Regenerativo en Bayamón and Caguas, Puerto Rico. He has obtained several research awards for his work on nutrition, supplementation, and cancer. He is currently director of RENAC2 project and research director in the Environment Project Initiative. Dr. Gonzalez also served as a nutrition consultant to the Puerto Rican basketball national team and was part of the Medical Commission of the Puerto Rican Basketball Federation. He was part of the medical staff of the Vaqueros de Bayamón professional basketball team in 2015. He is in part-time clinical practice with Dr. Miguel Verdiel in Ponce, Puerto Rico. In December 2013, Dr. Gonzalez was exalted as Distinguished Ponceño in the area of medicine due to his contributions in various areas of non-toxic cancer therapy. In 2015, he was elected as member to the prestigious Puerto Rican Academy of Arts and Sciences and to the Ibero-American Academy of Culture and Sciences. Dr. Gonzalez is a founder of Inbiomed, leaders in the development of non-toxic chemotherapy treatments for cancer. The findings of the work with intravenous vitamin C as anti-cancer agent published in 2002 were confirmed by the NIH in 2005. They published the first phase 1 clinical study utilizing intravenous vitamin C for treatment of terminal cancer patients in 2005 and also published in 2005 the most comprehensive review on vitamin C and cancer as a follow-up on the work of 2-time Nobel laureate Dr. Linus C. Pauling. He has developed many new concepts into the scientific field, such as bioenergetic theory of carcinogenesis, the physiological modulation concept, the systemic saturation phenomenon of intravenous vitamin C, the metabolic and mitochondrial correction model for disease treatment prevention, exosomes, and photobiomodulation in cancer. Dr. Gonzalez was inducted in the International Hall of Fame of Orthomolecular Medicine in April 2016. He is one of the first Latino and Puerto Rican to be given that distinction. Please welcome my friend, Dr. Gonzalez.
I have a big challenge now because there's been these 3 great talks, and then I'm before lunch, so I'm going to try to move smoothly through this. I'm going to be talking a little bit about all the mechanisms that the previous presenters were talking about. They were talking mostly about the genetic counterpart. I'm going to talk a little bit about how enzymes and how supplements work in terms of manipulating epigenetics. Edwin, in his earlier talks, were talking about epigenetics, kind of the dark side of it. I'm going to talk about the bright side of it, so to give it a balance. Let's see if I could manage the slides here. This is the idea, to die young, but as late as possible. So what we've been talking basically today, what we're going to be following these talks, it's about informational medicine. I'm not going to talk about energy, but light, photobiomodulation, what we call orthophotonic therapy, lasers, that sort of thing. It has an important component in reinstating or balancing metabolism, as well as cellular physiological therapy, stem cells, exosomes, peptides. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the metabolic counterpart, the orthomolecular therapy, what it's also called lipid replacement therapy by Garth Nicholson, and metabolic correction by our group. And it's about basically talking about macro and micronutrient kinetics. So many of you guys, you have heard that term before, orthomolecular medicine? It's a term coined by Dr. Linus Pauling, two-time Nobel Prize, together with Abraham Hopper from Canada, a psychiatrist. It refers to the right molecule in the right time, in the right form. So it's the use of precursor molecules capable of correcting metabolism to achieve the necessary balance to reach what we call the healthy state. So it's a non-toxic, physiological, friendly, therapeutic approach. We have talked about aging, we'll talk about senescence, we talked about different aspects of aging. And basically, what we could all come together is thinking that it's a state that is negative. You deteriorate your body, it's associated with weakness, with senility, with death. So it's not really something that we should be looking forward to. Not the healthy aging, but the disease-related aging. So the pathological part is that you lose movement, you have disorder, you have disorganization, you have loss of compartmentalization, you have loss of communication. So that's what pathological aging is. It becomes a cause, disease, death. So it's not something we're looking forward to. But the aging process ensues the oxidation of molecules, tissue damage, lower energy in general. And we have to start looking in a different point of view. We have to start thinking out of the box. And I think most of the presenters, that's what they have done. They have been thinking out of the box. So if everyone is thinking alike, then no one is thinking, Ben Franklin said, and it's true. So what will be real aging? Productive, healthy aging should be the process of accruing maturity with the passage of time, not necessarily the pathological component of this. So in terms of aging, there's a general idea of integrated energy theory, which the previous speakers mentioned of Dr. Sinclair, Dr. Garth Nicholson, even Denton Harmon to a certain extent. It's that mitochondria is very much involved in the mechanisms that control gene expression, and also in the component of organizing, ordering all the molecules in the body. So this also involves the conservation of membrane potential, the balance of intermediate metabolism, and the energy flow, the redox movement. Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, we have to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So what are the biological processes that are responsible for aging? Well, they have been mentioned: oxidative damage, telomere shortening, genetic alterations, and mitochondrial dysfunction, which all this leads to inflammatory processes, hormonal changes, and what is very important, loss of communication in cellular and systems, in the cell and in the systems. So the main issue here in terms of these oxidative processes is that we're going to have oxidation reduction processes going on all the time. And that's not the issue. The issue is when you start having excess of these processes, that you produce excess free radicals. And that's the problem. We're always going to have radicals because we have these redox oxidation movements, but we don't have to produce free radicals. Those are the ones that get out of the system and keep damaging other molecules. And the issue here is that most of them occur in the inner mitochondrial membrane. And most of them occur when you eat too much processed and refined carbohydrates. So that's one of the things that we have to keep out. It's eating refined and processed carbohydrates. There are protective enzymes that have been mentioned, SOD, catalase, glutathione peroxidase, which are concentrated in the mitochondria. And antioxidant molecules like vitamin C, vitamin E, carotenes, lipoic acid, selenium, coenzyme Q10. And all this sums up to what we call mitochondrial optimization, which is the energy of the mitochondria permits the system to maintain its order, organization, everything in compartments so it's organized, and maintain the communication. So this increased energy, I won't say excess, it's an increased energy production that keeps the order in the body. That's what we should call biological intelligence. And you know that the mitochondria, we inherited from our mother. Because when the fecundation process occurs, most of the mitochondria in the male, in the sperm, it's in the tail. So when you lose the tail, you lose most of the male mitochondria. So we inherit the mitochondria from our mother. So we have to know how to choose our mother for sure. That's it. We have to. That's something that we have to think about. Maybe Buddhism or Hinduism could tell us about that. In terms of the free radical systems, there are many components in the different parts of the cell, but I want you to really concentrate on the mitochondria, because the mitochondrial membrane is a very important part of that. And the issue here is that when this occurs in the mitochondria, you damage the membrane. So you start damaging the most important part of the cell production of energy. And senescence really starts when you start damaging mitochondria. And you damage mitochondrial membranes, you damage mitochondrial genome, you impair mitochondrial gene expression, and then you have the inability of mitochondria to replicate and divide. So you impair, in general, energy production. And that goes on and on. If you remember, or if you have been related to Chinese medicine is very important, what they call the yin-yang. It's a movement, a dynamic continuous dynamic movement. And you see old people doing these Qigong exercises, all these things, because movement is a very important thing. Movement is life. And they want to keep movement, and movement depends on the energy. So we have to protect and give good care of our mitochondria. Reactive oxygen species lead to oxidative damage, DNA mutations in the mitochondria and in the cell, and you have mitochondrial dysfunction as the primary object of the process of aging. So what we can do, so we have to optimize our mitochondria. We call it mitochondrial correction, but it could be called mitochondrial repair, mitochondrial recovery, mitochondrial restoration, mitochondrial rescue, mitochondrial renewal. The thing is that we have to do it, just do it. And we have been giving certain hints of how to do that. One of the things I mentioned is to reduce or really inhibit or not at all of these refined and processed carbohydrates. We could eat complex carbohydrates, but still, I think we should limit carbohydrate intake, because that's what really damages the mitochondria when this processes go in excess. The effect of this, it goes beyond mitochondria. You started glycating proteins, and that damages enzymes, damages the retina, damages the glomerulus in their kidneys. So you have all these issues damaging even capillary circulation, so endothelial function, you have erectile dysfunction, and all these sorts of issues that come accompanied with oxidative damage. The extracellular matrix, it's also something that is affected, and it's kind of our first line of defense in the cell in general, protecting the membrane. The membrane protects by its own, the mitochondria. So once you start damaging this, you're going to get all sorts of accumulated damage. That's why the process of aging and chronic degenerative disease take time, because all these processes are going on. So we have to kind of slow or stop these processes in order to be successful as an anti-aging therapy. You have the systemic aging, loss of communication, loss of information, and total entropy. It has been mentioned about the telomeres in aging, these repetitive DNA sequences of the end of the chromosomes. When they start shortening, you start having some sorts of problems. And one of them that has been determined is mitochondrial dysfunction. And that's our pattern of eating. We eat too much sugars, too much fats, and too much protein. So we eat a lot of everything. And one of the main things that have seen to extend life has been calorie restriction. And that's why it's important what mentioning Dr. Elliott was that about the intermittent fasting, because that's one way of reducing calories. It's one way of giving a rest to the mitochondria so it can repair and do its stuff and do whatever it needs to be done in order to maintain the order, organization, and communication necessary for the healthy state. So we see our patterns in terms of in continuity. We see that it's low in fiber, it's low in vitamins, and it's low in minerals in general. And as I mentioned, calorie restriction has been one of the things that has been proven to really extend life. But it's caloric restriction, not nutrient restriction. We need to have a nutrient-dense diet because we need all these cofactors in order for us to have all the information necessary for those peptides that we're mentioning before so they could work well. We need all these enzymes and all these cofactors to move on all these processes. Intermittent fasting, it could be done fairly easy in the sense of 12 to 18 hours. It has been kind of more effective, at least in the literature, when you go over 14 hours. 16 seems to be like the cut point where you have pretty much benefits. But it could go 18, 24 as long. Today I broke it. I think I did 12, which is not good. I usually do 16 to 18, but I was tempted. So temptation is bad. And it gives you time for cleaning and repair. You know, it's like you can have a system going on and on and on and on because it's gonna get exhausted. So that's what we do when we do this intermittent fasting. We give this period of cleaning and repair. So there are different ways. We have to eat less. We have to exercise, again, as mentioning before. There's anti-inflammatory nutrients like omega-3s, curcumin, boswellia, bromelain. There are nutritional antioxidants in foods, vegetable fruits, supplements like vitamin A, C, E, coenzyme Q10, NMN, carotenes. And we came up with this concept, Dr. Miranda and me. It's kind of explains how nutrition, this metabolic correction explains how nutrition and scientific supplementation can overcome or reverse the disease state. And it's basically helping the body achieve physiological optimization. It's really a fine-tuning of cellular physiology to improve function in order to preserve health, prevent tissue damage, and revert disease. The idea is to provide all the cofactors needed to improve cellular function. And it's a basic concept, but it has not been well taken or well understood or utilized as it should be. The idea is to improve cellular biochemistry to help the body achieve the metabolic optimization. And why we need this? Well, we need this for many reasons, but a couple of reasons are that we don't meet our nutritional needs, which are basic to maintain things. And as Dr. Elliott was mentioning, we have differences. We are personalized individuals. Our individual biochemistry and genetics is a point. If we don't meet the necessary things basic, we're not going to have a healthy state, a real healthy state. So we do not meet, our nutritional needs with the current diet. Other thing is that there's adverse effects due to medication, and there's a huge number of iatrogenic deaths by prescribed medication. So if we could lower that, improving metabolism, that would be one of the ways to improve health. And we have to compensate for the increased amount of nutrients due to the disease state or toxins. So those are 3 large reasons why metabolic corrections make sense. And why vitamins are important? Let's take a look at B complex. There are important cofactors in all metabolic reactions: carbohydrate and fat metabolism, protein, nucleotide biosynthesis, remethylation of homocysteine, which was mentioned before, DNA synthesis, gene expression, energy production. And the thing is that when we use these vitamins, we should use the most active form, because those are the most efficient ones in terms to quickly or rapidly correct metabolism. We came with the term, because most of our food is refined. So at being refined, we came with the term of anti-nutrient, that the food that we eat requires more nutrient than the one they provide. So basically, they're stealing nutrients from our body. That's why we call it anti-nutrients. And the thing is, let me go back if I can. The thing is that, sugar is refined, no question about that. But you know that the oils that we take, that we buy, are all refined mostly, unless they're organic or from the first press or extra virgin, as they call them. Those are the only ones that are in their total state. The refined ones are cooked at certain temperatures that disturbs their molecular structure, and they're added different synthetic stuff to preserve them. That's why they look kind of bright and stuff, because normally if you have a lot of profavonols and all these things in it, you're not going to have a very clear oil. It's going to be like dark. So you see, the real good oils come like in a dark kind of crystal or vase, because that's, number one, it protects them from the light, from oxidative damage. And at the same time, it doesn't make you see all these molecules, all those polyphenols that are there that could be darker. And the thing is that we have to really come back to nature and eat things really related to nature. That's how our body was designed for, not for the refined stuff. This term, hidden hunger, it's really what it refers to subclinical deficiency. And it's a term that has catch up a lot better than subclinical deficiency, but it's basically a high consumption of calories with low micronutrient density. So it's that we're eating a lot of junk food, we're eating a lot of calories with no nutrient value. And this inadequate dietary intakes of vitamins and minerals is kind of widespread, and it's the basis of all metabolic disruptions and the root of pathological states, including a rapid aging process. In terms of the subclinical deficiency paradigm, it's that it's going to affect all the systems, but it's going to go in some sort of order. So the most complex systems are the ones that are going to be affected earlier. For example, the immune system has a lot of processes, a lot of components, a lot of enzymes involved. So in that sense, it's going to be the one affected primarily. The nervous system is the second one. It involves a lot of complex processes, a lot of metabolic routes, so a lot of enzymes. So it's going to be affected. Hormonal system is going to be affected as well. And then the energy system is the last one that's going to be affected. But when we think about energy, sometimes we just think about mitochondria. And it's a lot more complex than that. We need the red blood cell, we need hemoglobin, we need the transport of oxygen, we need the exchange of CO2, O2. So it's a lot more complex than just the mitochondria. So in that sense, we're going to need the basic cofactors that are going to take care of the basic things. That's the triad theory of Dr. Bruce Ames. So we're going to take care of energy as we can, and then if there's space for anything else, then we'll take care of the rest. So those systems of the nervous system, immune system, which are very important for us to have a healthy aging and a healthy life in general, are going to be sacrificed if we don't have enough cofactors. So that's the idea of metabolic correction. And hidden hunger, it's a nutritional gap. A lot of people are affected by it, not only poor countries, but rich countries, because in rich countries you eat a lot of junk, a lot of processed and refined stuff. And this could lead to mental impairment, poor health, and disease in general. And there's various stages of nutrition deficiency, insufficiency, deficiency, dependency. But basically, I don't know if I should go in detail. I don't think I'll have the time. But in any case, what I want to make a point here is that it's very common to have a marginal deficiency or insufficiency because our diet is bad, but not as bad to have deficiencies in most of the people. Some people even may have deficiencies, even taking what is called the necessary or the RDA requirements and all that stuff. It depends on your particular biochemical or genetic individuality. So that's very important to have what's calling, like earlier, an N of 1. An N of 1 is your own particular picture of your health, of how your enzymes are working, how your genes are working, and that sort of thing will help a lot to determine your specific state of health. There's a dependency, I should probably state it. It's when you have a genetic polymorphism that increases the requirement for a nutrient. And there, it's more common than we think that it is. So it's something that you should be aware of, that a lot of people may have this genetic polymorphism that increases requirement for a nutrient. And sometimes they have this, we remember of a patient with migraine, and what he had an extra need for magnesium. So until he didn't start taking magnesium in gram levels, he didn't really got better of his migraine. So there are various stages, the depletion stage, the biochemical stage, and I want to stress on the biochemical and the physiological stage, because in the biochemical stage, it's that you start having a decline in function because the enzymes cannot reach their highest level of working. The Km is impaired. You remember Km from biochemistry. So all that stuff is impaired, so you don't have enzymes function as well as they should. So you start with a decline, but at this stage, you may not be able to determine it, really. The second physiological stage is when you're starting affecting the complex system, the immune system, the neurological system, and you start having a non-specific symptomatology like loss of appetite, depression, irritability, anxiety, insomnia, somnolence. And the person may not feel that well, but doesn't seek medical attention, but in that sense, in general, his health is not optimal. The problem is that sometimes he visits a physician, and physician's going to treat this insufficiency with medication. So it's going to eventually get worse. You may reduce symptoms with medical treatment for a while, but eventually it's going to be accumulating all these problems, and this insufficiency may even become a deficiency, and it's going to get worse. So that's why it's very important to give medication for acute issues, pain, stuff like that, something that you have to take care of immediately, but not to have medication go on continuously that you could mask this insufficiency or deficiency. Then the clinical stage, but the clinical stage is a semifinal deficiency stage, which you see the classical deficiency disease manifest, but even that is not that clear in our days, because most of the deficiencies and insufficiencies are compound, are not only one nutrient that you're missing. Most of the time you're missing various nutrients. For example, in B complex, you're going to be missing all the Bs, or you may have a certain need for one more in particular, but in general, most of the nutrient insufficiencies are compounded, not just one nutrient missing. And then the last stage, the anatomical stage, is death. So you don't want to reach that one, at least not soon. And then to add to this issue of diet, there's a contamination factor. There are environmental factors like smoke, petrochemicals, pesticides, herbicides, inducer pollutants, radiation, antibiotics, synthetic hormones that are inside of our food chain, and that damage our system. So sometimes some sort of detox before any treatment may be a good idea in order to try to reduce the damage of these things. And there's what we call food industry edible trash. Anti-nutrient, anti-metabolic nutrient displacers, trans fatty acid, processed and refined stuff, synthetic ingredients, artificial flavorings, colorings, chemical preservatives. We should try to keep away from these. Our body is not designed for them. And we have obstacles. We consume an unbalanced diet. It's an inferior nutritional values I was mentioning because there's a lot of refined processed food that increases demand of nutrients in many disease states, growth, development, and also there's a medication-nutrient interaction. So do we need vitamin mineral supplements? I think we do because of these reasons. Marginal nutrient intakes due to poor restrictive diets, growth and development, babies, teenagers need extra vitamins and minerals. Advanced age, you have absorption problems, interactions with medicines. Hospitalized patients, people suffering from acute chronic disease, pregnant, lactating women, increased requirements for nutrients, polymorphisms. Here in the Hispanic population, we have a lot of diabetes, and we have high homocysteine. It's probably due to the MTHFR problem. And we're eating too much refined carbohydrates. This is just to give you a taste of how much cofactors we need. This is the intermediate metabolism of energy in general. And if you look at it, these are all these three-letter things are different vitamins and that we need in order for these processes to go on and be able to produce energy. And you see PLP, it's vitamin B6, NAD, vitamin B3, TPP, vitamin B1, FAD, riboflavin, vitamin B2, CoA, which is pantothenic acid. So you see, and there's not even all of them there. There's not alpha lipoic acid. There's not magnesium. There's not calcium. So there's a lot of things that we need in order just to complete metabolic intermediate metabolism, which is needed for energy. If we don't have the necessary cofactors, this is going to suffer. So we don't want that. We want our metabolism to go ahead. And the beauty of this is that it's enzyme controlled. Once the enzyme is full, you're not going to get more. So that's why you eliminate this. Most of them are water soluble, so you're going to just urinate them without even the use of energy. So you eliminate them very easily. So the chance of getting toxic from one of these components, it's very little. You can, I mean, anything could be toxic. Even too much water can be toxic. But if we compare it to medication, the window of efficacy or the therapeutic window of medication is small because you have, if you use a very low dose, it's not going to work. If you use a too high dose, it's toxic. So you have a very small window. With nutrients, it's different. Toxicity, it's almost not seen unless you go with huge quantities for huge periods of time. So in that sense, it's pretty safe and pretty sure. And the most important thing is that you assure that you have the necessary cofactors for these things to go on. And it's inhibited by its own. You know, it has these, once you produced what is needed, it's a negative biofeedback. So you inhibit the enzyme. So it's going to control itself. You don't have to worry about it. So lack of vitamins damage DNA, damage mitochondria, diminished metabolism. You have production of incomplete metabolic products, which homocysteine is one of them. You have reduced hormones, antibodies, neurotransmitters, disrupted metabolism physiology. So you have a tendency toward the pathological state and the generation of disease and the advancement of aging. That's Bruce Ames that I mentioned that he has the triage theory of optimal nutrition that states when the human body has to prioritize the use of vitamins and minerals when it's getting insufficient amount of them, so able to keep functioning. So it's going to just take care of the basics. The immune system, the neurological system are you know, it's something extra. It's luxury. So it's not going to take care of luxury when it has to take care of the basic stuff. So these nutrients in a limited scenario are going to be directed toward short-term health and survival. It's going to be taken away from regulation, repair, and things that we need to increase longevity. And the concept is as this, enzyme speed, the reactions, cofactors are needed for these enzymes. The law of mass and action says that if you increase a cofactor, the chances of enzyme substrate interaction is higher, so you're going to have a better metabolism in general. And then the system, the principle of Le Chatelier says that all systems look for balance, but we have to give them the proper tools for that to occur. And the idea is to improve metabolism in general. And Km is a measure of the affinity of the enzyme for the substrate, so you want to increase that. So you increase that with the use of more cofactors, which are vitamins and minerals. This is a very important physiological mechanistic misunderstanding because many of the studies with nutrients have been used the idea of pharmacokinetics. And pharmacokinetics are for medication, not for nutrients. So we're changing that to nutrikinetics, which is a different mechanism, more related to enzyme function than to a specific receptor point. Although some nutrients, in addition to having their cofactor effect on enzymes, they have their particular receptor in certain areas of cells or certain areas of the organelles. But in any sense, they're different mechanisms. Nutraceuticals mostly work as enzyme cofactors and physiological modulators, while pharmaceuticals inhibit protein synthesis, they inhibit enzyme activity, disrupt cell membrane permeability. So there are different mechanisms. And when we use the idea of pharmacokinetics in the study of nutrients, we're gonna be wrong. And that many of the studies sometimes don't use the nutrients in the necessary quantity because most of the scientists are scared that the nutrients will be toxic, as medications are. And it's different mechanisms, that's why it's not. And the other thing, they use sometimes a different form, the form that is more available, but not necessarily the form that is more actively in terms of metabolically active. So that's another issue. So those issues, we're really aware of them. And that's why most of the studies that you've seen on nutrients and disease are not positive or not conclusive because they use the wrong form or they use the wrong dose. And it's because they're applying a pharmacokinetic model instead of a nutrikinetic model. This article, we just finished writing it. We submitted it for publication this past week. That's what I was mentioning about the therapeutic window. The drugs high up, the possibility of toxicity is bigger, and the therapeutic concentration is smaller when you compare it with nutrients. So that per se tells you that mechanisms are going to be different. And one of the problems that we have a lot of serious adverse reactions to medication in hospitals. We have deaths, about 100,000 a year. We have serious adverse reactions, and it's the fourth cause of death overall. So if we can reduce this with metabolic correction, we're helping the health paradigm. St. George said, discovery is seeing what everybody else has seen, but thinking what nobody else has thought. That's Nobel Prize winner, he discovered vitamin C. Okay, the practical stuff. What can we do? Oxygen. Hyperbaric oxygen is a good idea. Exercise. I'm giving you here some quantities. These are general quantities. Every individual may be different, as I mentioned before, but this is a general thing that you could take and start out with that. Lipoic acid, 300 milligrams BID, coenzyme Q10, 100 milligrams TID, acetyl L-carnitine, 500 milligrams BID, ascorbate, 1 gram TID, NMN, 1 gram a day, mixed phospholipids, 100 milligrams BID, magnesium in form of citrate. We have seen that it has it works well in the metabolic terms, in 500 milligrams BID, and a high potency multivitamin and mineral with active cofactors. General recommendation, eat organic, eat a wide variety of vegetables and fruits, eat plenty of dark leafy greens, cabbage, onion, broccoli, eat low carb, avoid dairy and gluten, exercise daily if you can, at least 3 times a week. An issue here in terms of cognitive function is that it's a very complex process. It requires many metabolic steps, many enzymes, many cofactors, many receptors, many membrane interactions. So if we really want to have great cognitive function, we have to have a good quantity of these cofactors. And in general, biochemical correction of chronic disease may take longer to produce results, but are the more long-lasting because it attacks the root of the disease. It's less toxic and more cost-effective. Therefore, biochemical correction should be, in general, the first option in medical treatment. So we need to abandon outdated paradigms of nutrient intakes and to prevent disease, and we have to expand them to prevent and treat chronic diseases. So we need cellular metabolic reprogramming to achieve optimal health with the principles of metabolic correction. The greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance, but delusion of knowledge. If we think we know, we're not able to learn. So we have to always be open to learn. That's Dr. Pauling in my office. I lent him my office. You see, it's all messed up, so any question will be, yeah. Thank you for your attention.